If you're providing school-based therapy the same way you would provide therapy in a clinic, we need to talk because school-based therapy is not outpatient therapy that just happens to take place inside a school building. And once you really understand that, your evaluations change, your goals change, your recommendations change, your service minutes change, and honestly, your entire caseload might start looking differently. So let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Tara Warwick. I'm an occupational therapist, and I've spent a lot of years working with schools, therapists, teachers, and administrators. And one thing I see over and over again is really good therapists working hard, but using a clinical model inside an educational system. And then wondering, why isn't this working? Why is my caseload so big? Why am I running from school to school? Why do I feel like I can't possibly see everybody on my list? And why does every child with bad handwriting somehow end up on my caseload? So today I want to talk about one of the biggest mindset shifts we can make as school-based therapists. In a clinic, we often start by asking what skills are delayed. What deficits does a child have? What can we improve? Those are perfectly reasonable clinical questions, but in the school, we need to ask another question. How is this affecting the student's ability to access and participate in their education? A student can absolutely have a deficit and not require school-based therapy. I know therapists don't particularly like that sentence because we are fixers. We see something that's difficult and our therapist brain immediately starts going, oh, I have an activity for that. Actually, I have 17 activities for that and 3 things I bought on Amazon and probably something laminated in the trunk of my car. But just because we can address something doesn't necessarily mean that we should address it through school-based therapy. That's where clinical reasoning comes in. Let's say a teacher tells me, Tara, I think this student needs OT. His handwriting is terrible. First, welcome to school-based OT. But my first question isn't, how bad is his handwriting? I want to know what's happening functionally. Can he complete his classroom assignments? Can the teacher read his work? Can he read his work? Is handwriting limiting how much work he's able to produce? Is he avoiding assignments because writing is difficult? Does he need significantly more time than his peers? Is there another way he can demonstrate what he knows? And what has already been tried? Those questions tell me much more than his handwriting is messy. Because there are adults walking around right now, such as me, with absolutely terrible handwriting who can still be successful. Some of them are physicians. Some of them are lawyers. As I said, some of them are OTs. So messy handwriting alone isn't necessarily the problem. Participation is the issue. Now, let's talk about standardized scores. Let's say I evaluate that student and their fine motor score comes back below average. Does that automatically mean OT? No. And the opposite is also true. If their scores fall within the average range, that doesn't automatically mean they don't need support. A standardized test gives us information. It doesn't make the decision for us. So we have to look at the student, the classroom, the environment, the expectations, teacher input, parent input, observations, data, and actual educational participation. We're not treating a test score. We're supporting a student. Now, I'm going to say something that can make therapists very uncomfortable. We are not responsible for fixing every deficit. Let me say that again. We are not responsible for fixing every deficit. Our responsibility is helping students access and participate in their education. Sometimes that means direct therapy. Absolutely. But sometimes the best intervention isn't pulling a student out of a class once a week for 30 minutes. Maybe it's working in the classroom. Maybe it's consultation. Maybe it's coaching the teacher. Maybe it's changing the environment. Maybe it's adaptive equipment. Maybe it's accommodations. Maybe it's helping the entire team understand why the student is struggling. And sometimes the student doesn't need us anymore. And that's okay. Actually, that's the goal. Our job is to work our way out of a job. We want students functioning successfully with the least amount of support they need. So now let's talk about everybody's favorite topic, caseloads. Because this philosophy sounds great, until you're sitting in your car at 11:47 eating something you found in your purse, trying to figure out how you're going to see six more students before 2:30. School therapists, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If we treat school-based therapy like outpatient therapy, every deficit becomes a therapy problem. Poor handwriting, OT. Sensory, OT. Student can't sit still, OT. Difficulty with scissors, OT. Trips on the playground, PT. And before long, our caseloads become enormous. Then we don't have time to observe, collaborate, coach teachers, analyze data, problem solve with teams because we're spending every available minute trying to get our treatment minutes in. And that's when I think we need to ask, are we practicing at the top of our license, or are we just trying to survive our schedule? Another thing I want to talk about that makes people feel uncomfortable is that sometimes we act like direct therapy is the highest level of service. Like 30 minutes of direct is better than consultation, and 60 minutes must be better because it's more therapy minutes. But that's not necessarily true. The best service is the service that produces meaningful participation for that student. I might see a kid for 30 minutes once a week. That's roughly 30 minutes of an entire school week. But if I teach the classroom teacher a strategy that they can use every day, now that student receives that support across the entire week, more than just that once a week for 30 minutes. That doesn't mean that all direct therapy is bad. It means we need to stop thinking more minutes equals better therapy. Instead, ask what service model is most likely to help the student function successfully throughout their school day. I want us to use our expertise to observe students in real environments, analyze what's getting in the way of participation, collaborate with teachers, coach staff, modify environments, recommend accommodation, use data, develop meaningful goals, and determine when our specialized expertise is and is not needed. We are not just the person who comes to pick up a student from class. And if your entire relationship with a teacher consists of, hi, I'm here for Johnny, we have some work to do. We are part of the educational team. The next time you receive a referral, do an evaluation, change minutes, move towards consultation, or consider dismissal, ask, what does this student need in order to access and participate in their education? Not, what deficit can I treat? Not, what service have we always provided? And definitely not, what number did they get on that standardized assessment? School-based therapy is its own specialty, and I love it. We're not outpatient therapists who happen to work inside a school building. We are school-based therapists. If you're a school-based OT, PT, speech path, and you've ever thought nobody actually taught me how to do school-based therapy, you're in the right place. Subscribe to my channel because we're going to talk about IEPs, evaluations, service delivery, documentation, caseloads, collaboration, how to practice at the top of your license without losing your mind in the process. Also, check out the comments for my free school-based therapy starter pack. Sign up, and I'll see you in the next video.